Welcome to the Modern Homes Podcast with Rob Clemens.
Frank Dominic.
And he is Frank Dominic. We are glad to be back. We had a little, maybe like a little 2 or 3 week hiatus, but a lot was going on. Frank's over in the other side of the world. Rob Clemens is doing all his stuff.
Rob Clemens is in this world, but many places.
Many spots within this world, absolutely. So, but it's been good, man. How you been doing?
Good. Busy.
Yeah? Staying busy. What is keeping you busiest right now for the people who are thinking about buying a home in the area? Are you staying busiest with single family, condos?
Single family.
Really?
Single family, yeah.
Yeah. Is there a particular area? Now again, for you who might be listening for the first time, you're outside the area. We are located in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, but we sell all along this area. What is a hot spot right now?
Right now I have 3 homes under contract. They all went under contract in the same week, 2 in Conway.
Okay, 2 in Conway. Now, why are people going to Conway, Frank?
Pricing.
It's pricing, but you still want to be close to the...
One was price, one was land.
Okay, yeah.
Another consideration on the first one where it was a price concession, they did not want to be in a traffic-y type area, which coming from the north sounds like a...
Traffic-y, yeah.
They want to be in a back roads kind of area.
Yeah,
that's where they are. They're in a rural area.
Rural areas, yeah. Well, they some of the comments I hear about people who are coming from the north to the south is we hear certain things, right? I want an acre or 2 of land. Oh, we hear that a lot.
I hear
right?
5 acres, and I get them out to a 1 acre lot. They go, "This is too big," and I'm like, "Well, okay."
Well, yeah, because you begin to realize, like, I'm coming down here to maybe retire, maybe relax, and now I'm going to cut 5 acres.
That's a lot of land.
And an
acre's a lot of land.
5 acres is like 12 lots in our area, maybe more. But I do think that a lot of people, they want to be close to the beach, but stay away from the traffic. Other things we hear from northerners who are coming down south are things like no HOAs.
Yes.
We hear that a lot. Now,
very common.
Why are you hearing so much of that? I mean, I have theories.
I feel like it's they're just not aware of it. They're not used to an HOA. They're coming from they hear people's they only hear the bad of the HOA. Yeah. I live in an HOA. You live in an HOA. Yeah. I don't mind it. I personally don't mind my HOA at all.
HOAs, they're like anything else. Sometimes, people, it gets out of control and all of a sudden they're overregulating. But the time that we really saw them taken off in this area was in the early 2000s. And there was a time where D.R. Horton started coming into town. And I'm talking about the big box builders. Forget D.R. Horton. It could be Syntex or whoever it was at the time.
Ryan Homes, could be anybody.
But they had a model. And their model was you come in. And before this, in this area, I don't think you were seeing as much of this, but they had a model. We're going to put in a beautiful clubhouse. And we're going to put in these beautiful statues at the front, maybe a pyramid with water coming down. But you realized somebody's going to pay for that once it's gone. So you form an HOA.
Not only that, but you have a ton of common area that you drive through and somebody's going to maintain it.
Somebody's going to maintain it. So, but that's what makes the property value more impressive in the long run. It protects your property. and then of course the natural progression of it is, well, we want to make sure that people are taking care of their homes to, again, protect the property value. So people always think, I don't want to be in an HOA. And then you see it and you go, well, it's not really the bad word.
Funny you should say that, because out of my 3, 2 were adamant to not be in an HOA. 1 was okay with it. One of the 2 that was adamant about the HOA is now buying a home in an HOA.
Really?
They saw the neighborhood, loved it.
Yeah.
They said it's beautifully maintained. We really like how it's manicured almost.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
yeah,
out of your fees.
Absolutely, man.
And they were shocked to find out they didn't have to contribute any more than that dollar amount.
Yeah.
Which are typically, let's say, $75 to $120.
Yeah,
that's about
exactly.
average.
Well, the best HOAs, and again, we're talking now. This is a show all about pro HOA talk, right? But one of the good things that they can do if they're smartly designed is sometimes they'll pair together a whole neighborhood, and they'll go to a place like let's say Spectrum, and they'll say, if you'll give our whole neighborhood a great deal on this, we will package it together. But you got to give us a great deal, and they build it right into the fees. So my parents live in a place called Presswick, which is in Myrtle Beach, and their cable is part of their HOA dues. So here they are, they're paying, let's say $130 a month, but their cable is completely covered. And you think about the cost of cable, you go, well, that's pretty good.
Sometimes you'll see cable, internet, trash removal.
Oh, yeah.
You'll see all those things included sometimes. And then when you look at that, you're like, it's not that bad.
Yeah, it's really not that bad at all.
But again, my other buyer, it definitely was not going to work for them. They wanted multiple acres. They're dirt bike riding people.
And that does not fly.
They work on cars in the driveway. Yeah. They gotta have their space.
Nice, man. Nice. Well, very cool. What else? We hear anything else from people who are coming down? What they think they need, but they.
The biggest one is, I want a non-HOA on acreage of land for under $350.
Okay. Well, yeah,
because they visited here a handful of years ago.
20 years ago.
Well, I mean, I was just having a conversation before the show with our producer, Lauren. I looked here in 2015 and 16 and bought a similar house of what I originally looked at, and I was in the mid threes. I paid in the fives when I got here.
Yeah,
2022.
Oh, 100%.
So 7 years later, you think it's going to go up. It's kind of like you have that cousin that you see every once in a while, and they were always a little kid, and then you go to their wedding, and you're like,
oh, wait,
wow,
he grew up.
That time didn't stand still. That's the same with pricing. Where you live, I guarantee the prices went up. Right?
I do have an anecdotal story that plays along with that, and then I'm going to get back on topic. But so my cousin, John, John.
Yeah.
So I hadn't seen his kids in a long time. And the last time I saw them, they were like 2 years old. So he says to me, this is going back a year ago, but he said, hey, Jared's coming into town, and he would really like to see you. And I'm like, I don't have a lot of time, but I'm like, maybe I can go buy a toy or something, Like I'm thinking like, he's like 20 years old now. Time got away from me, if you will, but
you really liked this Matchbox car when I saw you last.
Yeah, so I had to go back to Toys R Us, which is no longer around, Yeah, but here's another one. This is one of my favorites from Northerners coming down south. So they think they need a basement, and I'm always like, well, guys, you're going to have to get a big garage. You're going to have to get the bonus room over the garage because we don't do basements in this area,
Well, that's one thing that I make a point of when we look at homes. If they're coming from a larger home up north, I just say one thing you definitely have to take is your storage consideration.
Oh, yeah.
Whether you have a good attic space or good closets or, like you said, a garage or a standalone garage, because that basement's not happening.
Listen, here's a pro tip right here. We always talk about pro tips on the Modern Homes podcast. It is for a person who's coming down south and they're ready to downsize. And we hear it all the time. I was in 4,000 up north. I'm downsizing. But as you're downsizing, you will often find, I hear it all the time, now we don't have enough space for our extra stuff. So it's right, the 3-car garage and the bonus area up top, those are huge musts.
I am talking to 2 people who may come under agreement with me to represent them, and both of them are in that we need more space conversation.
Okay, yeah.
And I'm like, you came down here to downsize, and they downsized like
just a little too much, maybe.
Yeah, because you had a 4-bedroom place up there with a full basement, a full attic. You come down here, you get a 3-bedroom too because it's just you and the wife, and then you have your first visitor come down.
Yep.
And that 2-bathroom gets congested if it's a family with kids.
Absolutely. And then you realize I have no room for my Christmas Santa Claus that sits on the roof and stuff, and my doilies and whatever else people store. Yeah, it's crazy. Well, I think these are just little things that we hear all the time. So I appreciate you sharing that with the people. So I was out here, we like to talk about some things once in a while, just things going on. So this is Pro Builder Magazine. I get this as a builder in the industry here. But one of the things that it was doing the new American home in 2025. So we always want to bring value to our customers, talk about things that are happening. And this is a magazine that traditionally only goes to builders. So if you're a homeowner, you might not have heard this stuff. But here are some of the things that are saying are kind of like ways that you can stand out with your home. One of them is the floating staircase.
I've seen one, but it was in an older house, believe it or not.
Really?
Yes.
Did they remodel it to have the floating staircase?
No, it was original.
Man, that's pretty. Frank Lloyd Wright designed
it reminded me of one of his kind of works.
Yeah.
Definitely wasn't his house because we would have heard of it.
Well, I think the coolest thing about it is listen, a stairway has 2 things that it can be doing. Usually it's just the utility function. I've got to get from here to up there, right? But when a stairway is done properly, it can actually add to the value of your house.
It's an accent piece.
Yeah, think about like when you take a stairway, go into the 2nd floor, and it flares out the bottom and has like a little detail. Those character elements can help. So I can get behind this floating staircase idea. It's meant to be a little bit more modern as we get into a traditional area. Now, will this be a flash in the pan? Who knows? But I thought it was kind of cool. All right, so here's another one. They're talking about shower systems getting more and more impressive with what you're doing. Rain-style heads, extra jets, things like that. Now, the interesting part on that is that was actually a pretty big trend back in the maybe mid-2000s. I'm talking like 05, 06 range. Kind of went away. It is coming back with a...
You also had the tubs then, too.
Yeah, you're not...
I'm starting to see those come back.
Tubs are coming back.
There's tubs
Man,
coming back.
I'm glad you mentioned
You
this.
haven't seen that in a while.
Listen, this is a true story. So I'm not like all my other lies I like to tell. No. No, this is a true story. I was out at the home show, met a customer that I hadn't seen in a few years. She's like, come on out. I want to do a bathroom remodel. So I get into her house and she's showing me around and she's like, she's got a nice tub and a nice shower that she wants to make bigger. And she's like, I don't know, everybody's getting rid of their tub. Should I just get rid of it? And I said, honestly, I'd keep the tub because I believe like everything else, there's a cycle that happens in this industry. And right when everybody's got rid of all these tubs, all of a sudden people are going to be like, I want a tub, I want to soak. And now your home's going to stand out. Just let it have some time.
There's certain hallmarks. You walk into a house, you instantly know when it was built. You walk into a house in the early 2000s, you see archways and you see columns with, you would know as a builder what they're called, but they're almost like dividing walls that are not really structural.
Oh yeah. They're
just kind of half L-shaped walls everywhere.
Well, you know why those are there traditionally?
Yeah.
Because when the advent of the open floor plan became the popular, so it used to be that, you remember, go back to your grandmother's home. Remember how there's long hallways?
Which nobody wants anymore.
Nobody wants that, but we went to the open floor plan. Well, then here's what happened. People are like, but how do I furnish if I have no partition in this house? So there was a quick trend that was happening in the early 2000s where they said, we're going to build a little partition wall that you can see over, and there's a column and all this. But we've already evolved past that now because people hate those. And now
as soon as I walk in there, like, I don't like the column.
Yeah, immediately. Like, let's get real. So they just realized that from go back to a Frank Lloyd Wright concept and visual acuity, said if you can change the floor color, change to a different thing, put a border if you must, change the wall color, accent, it is a different room even if they're all open. So super cool stuff, right? Yeah. Wine storage. Talking about doing actual wine storage in houses. Yeah?
All I've seen so far is the wine fridges.
Cooler.
I did have one house. I did look at one house for a client that had a kind of almost wine room.
I wonder if we could make judge a certain type of person who has a whole wine cooler, like a wine storage facility.
Well, I mean, if that's your thing.
Hey, if it's your thing, it's good. Just don't get too over the top with it.
What if what's it, a sommelier? Is that what they're called?
A sommelier.
That's the wine expert.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Sommelier?
I don't know. We're gonna have to get our producer to check this one out. It sounds right. I just know not of this.
Those
word.
are people that swill it.
You know who does that?
Roll it in their throat.
I'm gonna tell you, you know who does it? My father-in-law, and he does it like this. He does this thing, and he does this thing where and it's always, the answer is always fantastic. Listen, we're having it. I never saw him send it back like this. Is terrible.
It has a good nose, good notes of pear and.
I assume, but like if I ever had to do it, I
can never catch any of that.
I'm always just gonna yes. That one delightful. Like never. This is poison. Please get it out of here.
I have an undeveloped wine palate.
Yep. Okay. There you go. All right. And the last one they said is continuous insulation panels. Now I like this one, Frank. I actually like this one. So continuous insulation panels. Here's what it is. Little known thing to the typical buyer. We always talk about in a house you have 16-inch stud spacing, and then what do you put in between it? You'll put insulation between. R13, R15. If you get up into a 2x6, maybe R19 or spray foam's popular. But here's the thing. Wood is not a particularly great insulator.
No.
It's better than aluminum and some things, but it's not particularly great. So what happens is if you ever do a thermal camera strong enough, you can see the actual studs. So this continuous insulation panels, what it's designed to do is it goes over the entire surface of the house.
Wow.
With a foam barrier, which foam is a great insulator, of course. And so as we're looking into more and more energy efficient houses, and look, there's still that fear that home energy prices are going to continue to go up. This is a way you can do it without.
They haven't typically gone back.
Yeah, they're not plummeting.
I haven't seen electricity, go down in price. It may stagnate.
It's stagnant, right? When's the last time you got a letter from your electric?
Well, lower your rate.
Your rates are lowering due to fortunate. That never happens. But anyway, so that was some buyer tips for 2025. So. And my gosh, we're already getting near the back end of the show. I talk a little bit of architecture that we don't talk about here much, Frank. The pyramids. Did you hear the big story on the pyramids this week?
No.
You have not heard that? Oh my gosh. All right. So
been rather busy this week.
Well, yeah, exactly. I learned this between 10 and 11 o'clock, right? the pyramids, the Great Pyramid of Giza, they did this LiDAR imaging. And LiDAR, without the ability to be able to dig in and dig down, they're able to see certain shapes and imagery. So they have recently found large, extremely large cylinders that are under the pyramid going down. I've heard different numbers, but 3,000 meters is one number I heard. But they're going extremely deep. And then at the bottom, they have some sort of a kind of like something spiraling around them. And the very base of them is yet another large block structure at the bottom of each. Phenomenally big. And look, I know Modern Homes Podcast, this is architecture.
It is.
And I can't help but to get excited about it. I'm thinking, like, if we're trying to say that the Egyptians built these years ago, how did you do that? I had a class one day, and I was talking to the people, and I said, how many blocks are in the Great Pyramid of Giza? Do you know this answer? All right, I'll take a guess. How many blocks?
2,000.
2 million.
Wow.
Which always, and the blocks range from 1,000 pounds to 200,000 pounds, I've heard.
I did see a show where they tried to reproduce building a small scale version, all same weighted stones and all that, with primitive equipment, and it couldn't.
I mean, you have to suspend some disbelief. Even the explanations are hard. But when they talked about these things, it's a game changer, because now you're talking about how do you drive these things deep into the ground with no equipment. I'm sure somebody who's coming up with explanations.
There was a theory I saw once on that where everything was cleared and filled in as the layers went. That's how they were able to build.
Sure. But to excavate
even that is crazy.
Ooh, I mean, yeah. Well,
can you imagine clearing all that land then?
Then
filling it back in and compacting it.
And then filling it, and then making these structures and getting them in there. And you can come up with a lot of theories, but at some point you got to go, that's
But what
weird.
you're talking about that's buried beneath.
Beneath the ground. Way. And I've always said, you kind of picture some pharaoh going, I really want to do this. and then I'm
just going to need about 3 million people.
About a couple million stones, and let's get this thing going. All right, well, I'm off on a tangent. That's a little bit of past new news, if you know what I'm saying. So, all right, Frank, any other things we want to talk about on today's show?
I think we covered it.
I think we're good, too. We appreciate all our viewers for listening. We'll be back next week with an all-new show. And for this time, we're going to sign off on the Modern Homes Podcast. Rob Clemens.
Frank Dominic.
See you next time.